All right, folks, let's get this party started. I think since we have some extra people on the call, maybe we do a quick round of intros first. So my name's Emily Sherrio. I'm an internal strategy consultant here at GitLab on the Chief of Staff team. David, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, David Summers. I lead our field enablement team. Eric, you want to go next?
Yep. I'm Eric Brown. I work for David in field enablement and enterprise sales.
I'm Tanuja.
Oh,
I also work for David. I am responsible for sales onboarding and commercial sales enablement.
Cal, how about you?
I'm Cal. I'm with the Deal Desk team, sales ops.
Don't all jump at once, folks.
What about you, John?
Hey, my name is John Blevins, also on David's team. I'm a sales training facilitator.
Gonna go next, Cassiana?
Yes, so my name is Cassiana Gajenev. I'm a people operations specialist on the people operations specialist team with my colleague Juliana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Juliana, as Cassiana mentioned, and I'm also on the people operations specialist team. Yeah, it's really great to meet everyone. Thanks for having us on your call today.
Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't we dive in today? First, I just want to give Monica a shout out for really awesome MRs that she made out of the last call. Great work. She's probably now a pro and can answer all your questions. So awesome. Juliana's going to talk a little bit about mermaid diagrams in the handbook today. So Juliana, maybe frame like the problem you had and then how you tried to solve it, and like what is a mermaid diagram and what does it look like and how do you go about working with these?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. So I just, as a caveat for everyone, am not technical. My mermaid knowledge is pretty basic, but I think maybe that's a good thing. Hearing things from a newbie, at least sometimes for me when I'm learning new tools, is helpful. So my problem, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and share my screen quickly. My problem was that, can everyone see my screen? Cool. My problem was that the people operations team has a very lengthy process, as you can see here, for country conversions. And we wanted something that was a bit more visual and digestible for other people who asked about our process. So the idea came up to create more of a visual flowchart. And you can do this, of course, in a lot of different tools, but I wanted us to make sure we were living out our value of iteration, and that if we were going to put a flowchart in the handbook, that it was something we could jump into an MR and change, not an image that we were constantly putting in and out. So I posted in the questions channel to see if such a thing existed, and Emily and Leanne and a few other people at GitLab told me about Mermaid. So using Mermaid, I was able to get this chart in the handbook. It's not perfect, it still has a few iterations to go, like figuring out why it's not staying in the bubble, but Mermaid got me to this point. And I can click Web IDE and make any sort of change I want to this. It lives in the handbook and it's recognized in MRs. So that was kind of problem and solution. And I guess now I'll take you through how I got from my problem to this first initial draft. I'm going to bounce around a little bit and show you live how to create a very basic chart. But I want to highlight that everything I'm going through is here. In the tools and tips section of the handbook, we have a mermaid section. So everything I'm going to go through right now, you can find here. So if you want to create your own mermaid chart at any point, you have all the tools here. So the very first thing I did was read through this GitHub's mermaid overview to kind of understand what Mermaid was. Turns out Mermaid is a tool that helps create flowcharts, Gantt charts, diagrams, any type of visual thing you want to accompany any workflow or data, whatever it may be. So I started reading through this to kind of get an idea of what it would look like in the handbook. And I went through several examples that Emily shared with me. Those are also here, example 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to be biased and pick example 3 because it's the one I did and it's what I'm most familiar with. So this is what a mermaid chart would look like in the handbook. It looks really confusing and complicated, but we're going to try to break it down a little bit so all of this makes a bit more sense. One important thing to remember is when you're working in the handbook to create a mermaid chart, you always need to have these 3 backticks, the word mermaid, at the start, and then the 3 backticks at the end. So this helps GitLab identify that you are putting in a mermaid chart and just distinguish between mermaid and markdown. So that's an important piece that you don't find in this documentation because this isn't made for GitLab. Great. So I thought about this in phases. The first thing I wanted to do was think about the flow, whether I wanted it top down, left, right, what the direction was. Then I moved into shapes. You see there are a few different, well, by a few I mean two. There's the diamond and then the basic rectangle shape. And then my third phase was colors, because the colors in this particular chart indicate who the owner is. So colors were an important element as well. And if you have any questions at any point, please stop me. So
I actually have a question, Juliana. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Out of curiosity, did you first like map this out like in an easier way to do it, like on a Word or whatever Microsoft, not Microsoft, this Google Sheets or something like that, or on a flow chart? You did? Or
I did.
Oh, okay.
I did. I'm trying to find it to show you. I didn't even think about that. Country conversions. Yeah, I did. I thought for some reason that I would be able to just pop this in the handbook. I was
wondering
wrong
about that. I was like, no way I could do that.
Yeah, there's no way. So this is what I mapped out prior. So this was my ideal vision of what I wanted. And once I realized that there was no way to iterate on this super efficiently in the handbook, that's when I moved to Mermaid. But that's a great point. And this was extra work, of course, but having this did really help me, especially since it was a new tool.
If another stupid question maybe, but why can't we just take a screenshot of this and post it in the handbook?
We can. For this particular flow, it's new to our team. So I think like every day or every other day, there's a change. So in the name of efficiency, I thought it would make more sense to have a mermaid chart, or it would be like editing this, screenshotting, putting in the handbook, a few hours later, editing this, screenshotting, putting in the handbook. And it didn't enable others to kind of contribute on the MR if they didn't agree with the change I was making, et cetera.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but you can, if it's something more permanent, just screenshot this and put it in the handbook.
The other thing too that I'll add there is the handbook should be the single source of truth. And if it lives in a PowerPoint slide or I don't know what this is, but like whatever tool this is, and that's where the information lives, then the handbook's not the single source of truth. So we want to make sure that we're working handbook first as much as we can where possible. Thanks, Juliana.
Sure. Cool. So Mermaid has the capability to go in these directions. For my chart, it made sense to be top down, but it can go left, right, right, left, bottom, top, whatever you want. So let's do a mermaid chart and type graph TD. No, hold on a second. I was playing with this earlier. I'm just going to reset. Cool. We'll delete all of this. So graph TD would be my very first step to decide my direction. The second thing I did was look at shapes. So this is a very nice section of this documentation. There are a lot of different shapes that Mermaid support, which is cool. And this is defined by these symbols around the text. So if it's a bracket, it's going to be sharp edged. If it's a parenthesis, it'll be soft edged. You can even do this cylinder looking shape, a circle, a lot of different things. The two I used were rhombus, this diamond looking guy, and the node with round edges. So let's get a rhombus in here. A, and I'll explain what the A means in a second. I realized I got ahead of myself.
Juliana, did you choose those shapes because they mean something like in process mapping, or not really?
No, it was just what I liked the most, to be very honest. I thought that the diamond was a nice indication of phase one, but you can really do anything that makes the most sense to you. I'm realizing that I'm doing, okay, yep. See, I made a mistake. So I was wanting to do A to B because that's the flow Mermaid recognizes, but I don't need an A to B because it's just A and that's the inception of the diagram. So to start off, it's just A, and then you put whatever shape you want. again, if I just update these, I can change the shape of the first section, but we've all acknowledged that I'm partial to the diamond for the phases, so I'm gonna go back to that. And for the second part, it's like A to B, B to C, C to D is how it flows. Let me see. Phase, okay. To B.
Also, how are you determining whether it's
B.
going landscape versus portrait?
Landscape versus portrait.
Yeah.
Oh, so that is this part here. If it's possible directions.
Okay.
So it's the TD here. And
Oh,
it's
okay,
not, I think I'm doing something wrong because it's not in fact going down. Let me see. Phase one. Phase one. Okay. But it's still not going down, is it? Hold on a second. Arrow B. There we go. Okay. I was missing the arrow. And then we're going again with the arrows. And this time it's going to be B to C. To C. And my text will be here. Example 1. Cool. And I'm going to delete that because it's confusing us. And so is this, I believe. Hold on a second. Sorry, everyone. I did this just a minute ago.
Don't
Okay.
be sorry. This is
Z.
Yeah, this is real life.
It totally is. I'm so sorry. I did the entire thing, like prepped for the demo before the demo, and now I can't figure out why I can't get rid of my B.
Oh, this is real life. If you went too fast,
It
we
is
wouldn't.
real life.
So,
Yeah.
all good.
Okay. I really don't know. Emily, do you have any idea why this B is showing up for me?
no.
Okay, perfect. What if I put, hold on, I have one more idea. Maybe if I go like this. Now we have the A. Oh, geez.
I'm looking at the image on that Mermaid editor. It looks like in some instances it has the straight up and down bracket. That's the official wording.
The straight up and down bracket. And it should be topped. Yeah. You know what? I have an emergency backup over here that I think I'm just going to pop in. And as soon as I figure out why this wasn't working for me earlier, I'll let you all know. But for the sake of efficiency and getting through this.
Well, now you know why everyone says live coding is the worst.
It's the worst. I'm so sorry.
No, this is awesome.
Okay, but anyway, to show a live example of the question, if I made, let's see, I'm going to take out some of these things that we haven't discussed yet to reduce confusion. Cool. Okay. All right. So we're getting going a little bit with the shapes. Again, if I update any of these, it'll change the shape of the entire thing. And everything in the middle is just my text. So you can modify the text and it won't do anything to the graph. I can take out some of this to make it a little bit shorter. Make it example 2. Okay. And after I kind of got the flow and the shapes going, the third thing I did were colors. So there's a ton of different things and I don't fully understand what all of this means, but what was most helpful for me is this guy here. So this allows you to define colors for the entire diagram. So to give a better example of what I mean by that, you see here I have B and then I have these 3 dots and pops. So pops for me means people ops. And this is what I wanted the color for everything that People Ops owns to be. So if I I define pops here, then throughout the entire chart, whenever there's these 3 dots and pops, it'll align with this color. And to have the color bank, to understand what these different numbers mean, this is really helpful. It's also linked in the handbook. So let's say I really don't like that pink and I want it to be khaki instead. I just copy the CSS color associated with khaki and I would change the color here, and that's now khaki. And you don't need to have this, for example, just makes the border really thick. I didn't need that, so I just took it out. But you can just kind of experiment with what you like best, and you can keep doing, right? So if you see my bigger chart, which I'm gonna paste in, now that we have an idea of what the flow looks like from a high level. This is my final product. So you see here, I don't just have people ops, I have tax, TR for total rewards, pay for payroll, and it starts associating all of these different definitions above with the different modules. And that lets you align the colors a bit more. And again, I can change all of these colors. So if I decide I like Peach Puff, I love that name. Peach Puff for people ops, I change it and everything will change to Peach Puff because I have these 3 dots and the definition above. And those are really the 3 things I focused on. Again, this doc is massive, and I'm sure for a future iteration, I could make this a little bit cooler looking, but the 3 things I did just to start everything off was flow, shape, and color. I'm really sorry that I had that slip up at the beginning. I really am gonna figure out what I did. One more thing to mention is this BR is just a break. So if I take away the BR at the top, it just has phase 1, 6 weeks, and I just didn't like how that looked. So if you just click, put in BR, it goes down. I didn't read that on this doc. That's just something that I'd figured out working with Markdown that apparently works with Mermaid as well.
I'll hop in there. So that is HTML.
Oh, great.
And if you look at the handbook, most of the file extensions are .html, .md. So it will parse the HTML and the Markdown. And sometimes there's also like .erb after that, which means it also will parse Ruby. So the file extension basically tells you what to use in a page in the handbook.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
I learned something. And that is my very high level overview of Mermaid charts. So once I have this is really, really handy. Leanne, who's our People Ops full stack engineer, shared this with me about halfway through my initial Mermaid journey. And Mermaid, when you go to preview mode and you're putting through an MR in the handbook, it won't show up as preview. So this is a way to see what it looks like live before you put that MR through. So this live editor is so helpful because you know if you have 1 space difference, you know, like if you space something wrong, like I just did, the entire thing won't show up properly. So I'd highly recommend playing with this and checking before popping it into an MR. So this is the exact same text. I just did it here first and then copied it over to the handbook. And then again, this is the end result.
And can you show again where you found this on the handbook?
Yes, I will put it in the Zoom chat.
The tools and tips, okay.
Tools and tips, correct. And yeah, in the tools and tips, you see live examples so you can see what it looks like. The live editor is there, this documentation is there, and the color bank is there. Any other questions?
I guess I'd ask, does anyone see an example where this might be useful for maybe a project you've worked on before or have in the medium-term future? Can you think of use cases for this?
I think it would be really helpful if we're like putting together a sales process map or something like that.
Cool. All right, well, thank you, Juliana.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I started putting some other ideas in the our Google Doc notes. I think that's a great example, Tanuja, sales process one. I do, Eric is leading some work documenting our standard operating procedures. And so part of that is looking at orchestration of handoffs between, you know, different sales roles throughout the sales process, you know, so from a lead gen person to a field sales rep to an SA to a TAM. So I think I could see that being super helpful, just making that clear through, you know, a visual representation of what those handoffs are. And even right now, what you said resonated with me, Juliana, of like the people ops process was really long. Ours on this isn't necessarily long, but there's a lot of text to understand how we prioritize and select topics for our enablement sessions, whether they be like Chris, your skills exchange, or the enablement sessions that John Blevins leads. Just by having a visual depiction of what that process looks like might help folks better understand it. So those are some ideas that I came up with. But Cal, from a sales ops side, you see things on your side?
Oh, he might have stepped away because it looks like he's muted and turned off his camera.
We're on crisis on sales ops side, so stepped away for a minute. Sorry about that.
No
worries. Didn't mean to call you out.
All good.
So one thing I have seen work, piggybacking off something you said, David, is especially where you've got multiple teams working together and this is documenting it, where you want to change the workflow on something, for example, it's a great way to propose a change to the workflow. So instead of hopping on a call, talking through it, like a great way to propose a change asynchronously, if you have this diagram in the handbook that says, you know, A leads to B leads to C, you can just propose like, also let's take a detour and go to F before we go to C. And you make an MR to the Mermaid diagram, people see the review app, and then you merge or you don't based on the buy-in on the MR. So that's awesome. I'm glad there are use cases and I hope this was practical. Thanks, Juliana, for coming today.
Hey, one more question for you, Juliana.
Yeah.
The live editor, is that
Yes.
to your point, Emily, if we wanted to do something in the live editor but save it and then and socialize it, can that be done with the live editor, or that's not how it works?
I would recommend putting it in the live editor and then creating like a whip if you weren't ready to put it in the handbook yet and you kind of wanted to go back and forth. I think that'd be the safest way to save it.
Got it. Cool.
I did figure out why the B wasn't working. If you'll give me 1 minute, I can show it to all of you. I really just couldn't let it go. 1 second. Okay.
Now you'll be able to sleep tonight too.
I know. I needed to just figure it out. So it's actually quite a silly mistake. When you define the different nodes, so A, B, C, D, etc., the text for the node needs to go after. So I was putting B here, which just had the B floating around, but there was no text associated with it. So if I just go like this and say hi, it'll populate with hi versus just B. So that was the reason. You just have to put the text after the B attached to it directly, or it'll just be a B floating around in space. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm glad you figured that out because I know that.
Me too.
More frustrating if you figured it out like 30 seconds after the call was over.
Yeah. I think I would have had to email you. I would have had to email you like a screenshot explanation of why the B didn't populate.
Emergency Zoom.
I know. Thanks so much for having me, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going on vacation for the next 2 weeks, so I won't be here, but you're more than welcome to on the calendar. But have a great 2 weeks. See y'all in May.
Have a great vacation, Emily.
Enjoy your vacation.
Bye.
Bye-bye.